What are some other agent level underwriting things that you can do besides claims history, looking at characteristics of homes or autos or whatever to make sure that we're erring on the side of less claims? You're running the quote, and you see a pipe burst in their claims history. Maybe that's not the best client to be putting on your book of business. Is that kind of what I hear you saying?
Yep, I would agree.
When somebody names their agency low-cost insurance, right? It kind of may trickle in the wrong, demographic of client you're trying to. Not that there's a thing wrong with that that name of the company, but how the products you offer and the limits you write and everything that goes into building that policy is going to build a preferred client no matter what your agency is. Just kind of taking points from looking at where you want to be. And how well you want to grow and, the type of business you want to have coming through your agency.
This episode of the Insurance Stream podcast is sponsored by Viva Virtual Assistants. With Viva, you can save over 60% of the cost of hiring a full-time employee. Not to mention employees are impossible to find right now. Viva makes the whole process easy and affordable with college-educated, bilingual virtual assistants that operate in the convenient central time zone. Go to vivavs.com and see why hundreds of insurance agencies across the United States have chosen Viva for their administrative staffing needs. Again, that's vivavs.com.
My name is Abe. I am with Insurance Professionals. I've got a couple of folks here from Travelers Insurance. They're going to be sharing with us the overview of this webinar and all the details in it too. This one is how to minimize your losses, how to increase your agency's profitability. We're going to be talking about different aspects of the customer that will be the most profitable for you. We're going to be talking about the steps that your insureds can take to reduce their loss exposure and other topics that Travelers will be sharing with us. We have, so we got Rachel, and then remind me your name again.
Brian in underwriting.
Brian. Yeah, Rachel. Rachel is one of the reps for Travelers Insurance. Brian works in underwriting. Thank them for their time here today in sharing this information with us. I don't know, who's going to start or where you guys want to start, but again, thank you, and I'll turn it over to you so that way you guys can kick this off and get it rolling.
I think one of the first questions, Abe, was just kind of how, what really is surrounding like our appetite and what's going to make a good client, long-term client for Travelers if Brian wants to hit on that.
And Travelers is a preferred company, right? So when we're looking at long-term profitability on a book of business, I think that was one of the messages that I wanted to send out to our agents is, depending on how I was helping a guy yesterday, and helping him design actually a sign. And I wanted to kind of pull up the sign that we came up with, and I'll share my screen here. And let's see here, do a specific window. Here we go. So this right here is the sign that I came up with for him. Because depending on how we target our advertising will depend on a big portion of the quality of clients that you get. And I'm not trying to steal your thunder here, but this right here, I think was something that I thought, man, I need to remember to share that because what we're doing in this is we're looking for preferred customers. We're looking for claims-free customers. We're looking for homeowners because then when the homeowner comes to us, we can bundle auto and toys and RVs or whatever they have, right? And those kind of clients are the ones that not only you'll hear from Travelers that they're seeking, but those are the clients that you should be seeking for your agency too. They're going to call you less. They're going to need less billing reminders, that you're going to be able to scale quicker. There's all sorts of benefits. They're going to be claims free a lot of times. And there's all sorts of benefits to positioning your advertising correctly.
Yeah, that's important too, because we have some agencies, and not to say that when somebody names their agency low cost insurance, right? It kind of may trickle in the wrong demographic of client you're trying to work. Not that there's a thing wrong with that that name of the company, but how the products you offer and the limits you write and everything that goes into building that policy is going to build a preferred client no matter what your agency is. Just kind of taking points from looking at where you want to be, and how well you want to grow, and the type of business you want to have coming through your agency.
Yes, exactly.
Brian, if you want to go ahead, you can go and start if you like.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so I'll just kind of go over a couple of things that maybe a couple edits that we look at a little closer from an underwriting perspective, and just kind of some of the information we look for when we get a referral over, or things that could help the agency as well to make the communication easier as well. A couple of the big things we really look at, and this is the first one's a little bit more on the kind of the western side of the United States here, is the brush eligibility. That is something that we do look at quite a bit in the West. It is something, there's a couple components that go into that, and the system will run it all for you, but it's going to run a file line score. What that looks at is, the proximity. It factors in the fuel, so proximity to brush, the access to the home, how easy is it to get in and out, and the slope. So that will run whenever you put in the address for the quotes. The other thing that it'll run is the wildfire classification, and that's anywhere from low to high to extreme. Essentially what that is, it's historical data of how frequent has there been wildfires in that area. So those are a couple of things that combine to look at our brush eligibility. Like I said, it will tell you right off the bat if it's something not eligible. So once you put in the address, you don't have to go through the full quote. Once you put that in, the system will run it. If it comes back as not eligible, it'll give you that. As far as brush, we're not able to make any exceptions when it comes to the brush exposure. So if it comes back not eligible for brush, unfortunately, just not something we're able to write. The one thing with that as well is we do rerun the brush eligibility every renewal. So we work with ISO fire lines, so there are times where that can change. And in the majority of our states out west, save for maybe California, those are things where we can non-renew if the brush exposure gets worse. So that's kind of a heads up. The one thing with the brush really is when it gets to the higher valued homes. And when I say higher value, it's really once it's $1.5 million and more. Those we look at a lot closer, just because there's so much more exposure. So the system may even come back with, a brush score that's not too bad. But when it comes to those higher value homes, we also look at the area surrounding. So we're not just looking at the score for that home. Once it hits that value, it goes to our high value home underwriting team. So they're looked at on a case by case basis. But we look at them a lot closer once it hits that 1.5 million on anything, whether it's losses, brush, everything we just look at on an individual basis. So that's kind of one of the big things that we have out west. And then really across the board, another one is with our non-weather water claims. Definitely, as you mentioned, if it's claims free, obviously that's the best. But even if there is some claims, we look at the non-weather water ones a lot closer. Was it, maybe it was just an appliance leak. That's not as big of a concern, but was it, a pipe burst or something like that? So with those, generally they're going to refer in the system, where we may need to request, proof of repairs, those type of things, depending on how old the claim was. We just look at those a lot closer than, say, a weather claim. Just because we see, especially if it's a plumbing related, where that can lead to more and larger
claims,
losses. Yeah, down the road.
So if you're running a client, you're running the quote, and you see a pipe burst in their claims history, maybe that's not the best client to be putting on your book of business. Is that kind of what I hear you saying?
Yep, I would agree. There are always going to be times where we can look at them. There just may be, a lot more documentation. I know for some, if we're looking to write one with, like a pipe burst, we may need to see that the entire plumbing, has been, a lot of times what we're seeing is the plumbing's, in the slab or something where we needed to see it's rerouted, but there's a lot that goes into looking at those. So not saying we can't ever write them, but we definitely look at those a lot closer.
I don't blame you. Okay. So let's talk about, do you have information on East Coast? So or maybe Midwest. What are the classifications? And jumping back to the wildfire thing, I thought it was so interesting when you said that. We were at InsurTech Connect last week, 2 weeks ago, and there's a company there that does like this visual map data stuff. They've got these planes that fly over and take these, basically what appear to be satellite images, but they're from airplanes, so they're a lot lower of elevation. And they had this interactive thing where you could take and compare two dates and then slide the thing back and forth. You'll think this is interesting from an underwriting perspective, but so there was right in this area in Colorado that has wildfires, right? Every single house that had trees that touched the home in this neighborhood burned all the way down to the ground when the fire came through. Every single house that did not have trees touching or did not have trees, in the proximity of the home was totally fine. And, probably some smoke damage, I would assume, but, they were not a total loss. And so I came home and trimmed my trees that were close to, true story, that were close to my house after seeing that. Not that I'm in like a high likelihood, I'm in a town, but I'm, not in a super high likelihood area for I'm not on the edge of town like this neighborhood was. But I thought that was interesting. So, are there other characteristics, like I said, maybe moving into the Midwest, even up and down the Eastern Seaboard where you guys write homeowners insurance? Are there other characteristics that we should be looking for? Just because there's obviously your level of underwriting that's done, right? But then there's the agent level of underwriting that we can do to try and have a profitable book for the companies we represent, but then for our agencies too, right? Because eventually, a lot of the agents on this call, maybe they're coming through us for some market access right now. You're going to have a direct appointment if you write enough business eventually, and you want that direct appointment to be a profitable direct appointment to keep it. So what are some other agent level underwriting things that you can do besides claims history, looking at characteristics of homes or autos or whatever to make sure that, we're erring on the side of, less claims?
Right. And that's a great one. As far as the trees touching the home and around the home, there's not a lot from an underwriting perspective we can really do, prior to a policy being issued on our end, because, we don't have those kind of photos and, sometimes, street views, those can be, who knows how recent those are. But we see that a lot when we get inspections completed. And from the inspections I see, if there are tree limbs touching the home or, really large trees overhanging the roof of the home, those are things that we will write out for to have them trimmed back. Not just, definitely, in brush states, that's a big concern there, but even, we see, large tree limbs or that overhanging the roof where those, if, to break or anything that can cause damage to the roof as well. So those are, that's a great point. Those are definitely ones we would write out for from an inspection. So yeah, if those are things where insureds are able to send agents photos, around the home ahead of time and they can see if that's done, it's just, kind of a preemptive thing they can do. Because yeah, if they come back on an inspection, we would definitely write out for those types of things. The normal things, we look at, roof types, is there any lifting shingles, those type of things. More where we're getting a little more restrictive is when it comes to flat roofs. We can still write flat roofs, but if there's any like a rolled roofing material, in the majority of our states, that is now not eligible. If it's over living quarter, if it's over like a patio or something like that, we don't have a concern. But the ones we do have is it's kind of like a rolled, almost asphalt shingle type of a thing, where it just doesn't have the same quality as your normal asphalt or architectural, those type of things. So majority of our states, if it's over living area, that is not eligible. So we see those come back on inspections. To
recap, then, you're just so far what you've gone through, and keep going here in a second, but the quality of the roof material is a big indicator of whether or not there will be future claims on a home.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay.
Yep, and we'll look at, what if there's any lifting. And I mean, if there's, one or two, that's not really going to be a concern, or, things do happen. But we'll look at inspectors will kind of give a percentage as well. 20% of the roof has some lifting shingles, that's starting to be a decent amount. Or, they'll look at also things inspectors will look at is like the granular loss. I mean, even though sometimes a roof may be 25 to 30 year, from the manufacturer, depending on certain areas of the country and the weather they get, as far as from future claims and the how good the roof is going to be, that can be less. So inspectors will look at that as well. What kind of lifespan they think has left on the roof as well. So yeah, roof is definitely a big one as well.
Okay. So, and that's of course anywhere in the country. So again, looking at, like I said, because we covered quite a bit on the West Coast, but looking at Midwest, East Coast, are there any specific things that agents should be looking for on the agent underwriting level, regarding those clients?
I mean, to be honest, the majority of stuff, my assigned agents are on the West Coast.
Sure.
So, I mean, that is, Western is majority of what I handle.
Mhm.
I mean, really just looking at really the overall condition of the home. I mean, we're not looking for, even if it's a newer purchase for an insured, we're not looking for things that have extensive even if they're planning on, getting started on right away where there's, kind of a fixer upper or a lot of work that needs to be done to the home. We're looking at, what's the condition of the siding, those type, how well is the home kept, that type of thing we look at a lot as well. So we don't really, if they plan on, buying it, okay, we have quite a bit of work we're going to put into it. Depending on that condition, generally that's not something we look to write. We would look, once all those renovations are complete. Correct. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. You had a couple more things you were talking about from the agent underwriting stance. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I just had a couple other quick things that could kind of help, make the process of either referring or having risk review just kind of smoother and easier for the agents. Just if the agents have a risk that they're quoting and there's an underwriting referral or something on there, they can always reach out to underwriting if they want us to review it before presenting it to the insureds. Because the system will give, a couple messages, if it's just a referral, doesn't necessarily mean, it's ineligible or anything, but it would just have to be reviewed by underwriting. Because I know in a lot of states, especially like on the auto side, it may just be, referring for some comp or not at fault losses where we just may need some documentation.
Sure.
So they can always reach out to us if they want us to review it before presenting to the insured. That way, if we need any documentation, they can know ahead of time and, no surprises on the back end. And I don't know if all the agents have it, but so if you're emailing, you can either email in or give us a call. Your assigned underwriter for the agency is Tom Kruswick. So he would be the one that you would email if you're emailing in. But if you always want to give us a call, it would go to Tom first. If he's not available, we have a team of us that are here and anybody be able to review it over the phone as well. So we just find that helpful. If there's anything we need, then they know that up front rather than on the back end with the insureds. The last couple of things, one thing I find that's very helpful, if there's anything that's a referral or you want underwriting to know when you're submitting it over, is using the notepad within the quote. It's going to be under the tools and reports in the quote, and then there's a notepad for at least putting in at the minimum, like who you are as the writing agent and what your contact info is. That way, when it comes over to underwriting, whoever's reviewing it knows exactly, okay, this is the person I need to reach out to, because we may not have direct contact information in our system for each one of your guys' agents. So if they can just put that info in there, it makes it quicker. We can respond to them quicker with any questions.
Sure.
And if they they want to let us know anything, there's a loss and they want to give us details, that always helps as well. When we get a referral, we go there first to see if there's anything that the agency has put in there. So that's very helpful. And then really the last one, just kind of wanted to go over on the home side, where we do use close without payment claims for eligibility.
One more time, you kind of cut out there a little bit. That's okay.
We use closed without payment claims for eligibility.
Mm-hmm.
So we see a lot of those where I know a lot of companies, if an insured calls in, even if it's just an inquiry, they open up a claim. So we like to recommend, because, if they call travelers, we're not going to advise them not to turn in a claim. Right. But we do like to maybe let agents know, tell their insureds, call the agency maybe first to discuss it. Is this something worth filing? Or we see some that are very small that are under deductible. that's a claim that's been filed and it just shows up as closed without payment. But we do use those as eligibility. So if they have a few of those, that can make the policy ineligible. So, or, there's a claim and it's just barely over their deductible. It's like, so a lot of that being able to claim counsel on the agency with the insured can help that going forward. That's even, current clients, if you're looking to move to Travelers, it helps too, just because, like I said, we use those for eligibility. So
or current clients that are with Travelers or with any preferred company, really. I mean, because, and that's the purpose. We will hear some, Travelers specific information. We appreciate that. This for any preferred company though, this is going to be the same MO, if you will. I'll let you take it away on here. Looks like you got a detailed list here.
Yeah. So with, going back to Brian's, about the losses, we also have this Travelers Loss Consultation Group. So any agent can call, the customer can call, once they contact your agency, if they're still, kind of like, I don't know whether to file or not, they can actually call the consultation services. And they, basically it's a claims person asking them, they give them information. They'll ask them, they'll review the customer's policy. They'll discuss the details of the loss. They'll help the customer make an informed decision based on all the variables of their policy to see whether that claim should be filed. If the client decides to not file it and move on, nothing gets documented. They don't get, those zero claim payouts. It just kind of sits in this, they kind of consult them on what they should do, because ultimately it is up to the client, his decision. And then if they decide that, yes, they do want to file a claim, then that person on the line will help them get that claim started as well if they wanted to go that route. I definitely recommend this, because sometimes, claims could be gray areas and there's things that us as sales executives may not know. Underwriting, we strictly go by the content of the policy. So, claims would be their direct link to being able to get their questions answered, effectively and making, the best decision that they can make in regards to their policy and that claim.
And then, Rachel, are you able to take that PDF and then do you see where it says files if you can add that file here so that way people can download it, that would be awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Yep, I could do that.
And to piggyback on Rachel's there, this is a great thing. Is a great thing because it's also, they can call in to see if even something's covered.
Yep.
Right.
Because a lot of times we'll get a call in underwriting and we're not involved in the claims process at all, so we can't ever really say, yep, that's going to be covered or not. We can read policy language, that type of thing. But calling this consultation line, like Rachel said, doesn't open a claim unless they say, yes, open a claim. But it can even be like, I have this has happened. Is this even something that's covered under my policy? So,
yeah, well, and that's really cool because, there's a lot of times I know when we owned our retail agency, that you'd get a call from a client and it's like, you're not licensed in claims. I mean, you can read the policy, same as you, right? You can read the policy language. We can interpret it. A lot of times we could probably give a yes or no answer, but there's so many facts and details and circumstances beyond what you could possibly be briefed on a 10-minute phone call, 5-minute phone call with your client, about water loss or, whatever, like what caused it. I mean, and then you're just getting the customer's opinion, not necessarily the fact. And so, that's a super cool resource. If you can put that up on that files section, Rachel, that would be super
definitely
cool. And I think everybody should be doing that, right? If you have a client calling about a claim, that's probably a good way to route that, is to just have them call there first, because I'm assuming if they call and they're like, hey, a tree hit my roof and there's water pouring in, they're going to be like, yeah, you should file a claim. Let me get you over to claims. Is that how that process works?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, they would be the, if they're calling you, first, and you guys are discussing it. Obviously, if it's something that's immediate that needs immediate attention, then of course, then they should, call claims. This is more for like if they have, maybe they don't know whether it's something that would be covered. And one of the ones, just to give you an example, is there was a insured that wasn't sure if some raccoon damage was covered to they had gotten up into the attic and had destroyed some some belongings up there, and you know, I don't know what the details were on the claim, but they used this to deter, you know, to be able to route that customer, because the agent was like, well, you know, was a raccoon considered a rodent? You know what I mean? Is a
Right.
raccoon, you know? So there was a lot of gray areas where would this have been covered, and his client used this option. And you know, I'll be honest, I don't know what the outcome of the claim was, if they filed it or not, or if it was even covered. I just know that when I presented him to this, the customer called there and they were able to, you know, help him. He even called the agent back and was just so, you know, so thankful that we had this because he was able to ask questions, and the agent just didn't know, you know, whether, you know, it was something, because it was in one of those gray areas that the claims consultation was able to assist with.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a very good resource.
Sure. Perfect.
And I'll save that in the file. They're open, and they also have, just so you guys know, they also have a commercial side to this too. There's 2 different phone numbers, but on the flyer it does have one for personal lines. They're open certain hours, but they do have a section for personal lines and also a section for commercial lines. And I know that somebody asked a question on the commercial side. I'd have to check to see. Yeah, I'd have to check with the commercial lines group to see what's going on in Florida. We don't really, you know, we don't know what's being open there right now, is what type of a business they're taking at this time. So
sure. Yeah. And then, yeah, what other things did you want to cover regarding the underwriting side of things?
I mean, those are really the basic things I had, so I didn't know, if you guys had general questions or anything.
If anyone
specific,
has any questions on what you can do, because this, you know, again, we're talking about profitability here. We're talking about claims. If you guys have any questions relating to those, Rachel, let's talk about, you know, you've been a rep for how long?
I've been with Travelers. I'll be here 8 years in December. I used to work I used to handle the Midwest territory of Illinois and Minnesota. Okay. And then I switched over to Arizona in March.
Mm-hmm. So. All right. And then, you know, of course, everybody tuning in, that's where Insurance Professionals is out of, and that's how, you know, we got in touch with these guys. And so over your time, what are the attributes of the agency that has a profitable book of business? How are you seeing them positioning themselves as far as, like, you know, the advertising? I mean, this is an advertising webinar, but, you know, as far as like the draw that they have, what do you see the people that are writing profitable business doing differently from the people that are not writing profitable business?
A lot of it is, you know, the networking that they do. You know, a lot of them are, you know, if you market to your networks that are a little bit more higher net worth, I have some agents that go out and sit on, you know, they go out and target, you know, education boards where they're talking to teachers, you know, where they're talking to, you know, maybe they belong to a law association where they're talking to a little bit more higher net worth client, or they're working with private client groups that deal with like trust, you know, people who handle trust. There's so many different avenues where you can, you know, market yourself. But at the end of the day, even somebody that is high net worth may not always be a good fit. They may have a horrible driving record. So there's a lot of things that you can do, but always remember, you know, where you bring in that business. We do have, you know, a lot of agents, you know, they post a lot of content. If they have Facebook pages, you know, Instagram, LinkedIn, they do use our toolkit on their own particular websites to, you know, to download content. You know, if they do have, you know, that outlet, you know, there are certain campaigns. And, you know, Abe, I don't know if you guys are allowing your agents to post that kind of stuff on. I know we kind of disabled some of that stuff, you know, from you know, a acquisition and retention, you know, form. But, you know, there are ways that you can, you know, kind of pinpoint a certain type of client that you want. But, you know, a lot of agents that are successful, they really, they don't do a lot of mailings. They don't do a lot of stuff that's like direct mail. It's all just building relationships, building a network. And a lot of it is their referral business. You know, clients will refer people who are like them. They're going to refer people who are in their midst. If they run in the same, you know, if they they play in the same sandbox. So that's where they really find the business that they're coming in is a little bit more what we're looking for. And you're going to have, your, customers. A lot of times what I see is, you have a high net worth household, and then they have a child that's spin off, but maybe the child may not qualify for travelers. Maybe there's something in their driving record, but they can still put them within the agency in another carrier, and then kind of slowly graduate. Part of building that clientele, especially when it comes to appetite, is making sure that they're educating their client on how they can do better. So when you have somebody that comes with, these lower limits, and, educate them why the importance of them to move up, even if it's just one step up, and even if it's something that maybe doesn't fit with travelers, wherever you put them, always put them in a better position from where they came from.
Like from Dairyland to Progressive to Travelers or Nationwide. Or,
exactly. Yeah. And build their limits, because when we run those insurance scores, all of those demographics build on that insurance score. And those are the things that are running in the background. So somebody who's always with a non-preferred carrier carrying minimum limits that has a couple of losses, they're not going to improve their insurance score by every carrier offering them the same thing. So you want to educate them. Sometimes what I see, people buy homes and they don't increase their coverage. They leave their auto. They don't even discuss, the impact of the auto. If something happens in an auto accident, that's the first thing that somebody's going to attach themselves to is their assets. And one of their assets is their home. So you want to make sure that they have, the proper limits, and it's just going to help them over time, build a better insurance score for themselves where, at one point they're going to be able to be placed with any, preferred carrier. Yeah. Another thing, if individuals are, they're coming into the agency with an accident, or maybe it's a little bit larger household where there's multiple accidents, have them absorb some more of that loss. Don't be afraid to offer them higher deductibles, because at the end of the day, it's your loss ratio that you have to protect. It's your profitability. And I will tell you, if people have multiple accidents, the likelihood of them having another one is there. So it's either put them in a place where they're going to have to improve their loss, history, or make them more accountable for a portion of that loss as well, because you want to make sure that mix is even. Same thing, I hear this all the time where in the past, where they talk, oh, well, this guy only has, comp claims. They only have a couple of glass claims. And then you pull it up and they have like 4 or 5. Well, that's, why often is guy glass coverage? This is somebody that, glass dings are hard to avoid. It's just here, especially here in Arizona, you're driving, you can get hit by a rock any time of the day, no matter where you're at. But those are the kind of things, that you have to be mindful of. If they have 1, 2, they're probably going to have 3. And each one of those, now with the cost of claims, the cost of repairing the repairs, those types of claims are getting higher and higher, and it's ticking away at those. And at the end of the year, when you're looking at your loss ratio and you see all those claims that could have been maybe if they had a higher deductible, they would have paid more. Or maybe it would have been something they paid out of pocket. Not that we want to push people to that, but
we're not having the glass coverage to give it to them in the first. I don't pay for glass coverage on my own auto policy, and I had a guy. I just got a referral from one of my neighbors. The guy came to my house. He did the little suction cup glue deal, and he fixed the rock chip. And I want to say he charged me like $50. Yeah. And so, but when you go through insurance, you see got $100 gift card to steakhouse. It's like, well, who you think's paying for that $100 gift card? The insurance company's paying for it. Exactly. Your loss ratio is paying for it. So counseling clients on if they have a motorhome maybe where it's going to cost $10,000-$15,000 for a windshield, maybe that makes sense to do some glass coverage on there. But if it's for an auto, look at the price difference that you're going to have them paying every 6 months, every year, and then calculate out, would you rather just pay $50? Because I did it once, and then that's it. So it makes more sense for me, because it's cheaper for me to pay that out of pocket than it is for me to get that glass coverage. So
exactly.
Counseling your clients on those different options, maybe viewing it from a little bit different of a standpoint, that can help protect your loss ratio too. Go ahead. Sorry.
Exactly. Yeah, and you're absolutely correct. We're not trying to dissuade customers, from filing claims by any way, but there's also, you have to be mindful of those ones who are filing claims all the time. Another one is towing claims. You see people on there, well, if your car is breaking down that many times, are you kind of, what's the maintenance on it? Are you taking care of it? It speaks to the type of, the household, maybe they're using that as a maintenance plan, and, they maybe they need a AAA membership versus the towing, because those kind of claims over time, although they're not, they may be $75, $80, they chip away at the agency's loss ratio, and that little bit of percentage can throw you off at the end of the year.
For sure. We have an agent actually that's gone through that, and I won't name the state because I don't want to, but she's got all these towing claims, and it's like you look and then all of a sudden she's got 120% loss ratio. And it's like, well, shoot, So, and then, there's other companies too. So this is, tying back into getting to know your products and your carriers and things like that, because I know Kemper Insurance, for example, their towing, their roadside assistance is an indemnity through a separate company that they sell as an add-on to their policy. So when your client, maybe for those households that you were talking about, Rachel, that, have vehicles that are older, that are not well maintained, that are kind of on their last leg, right? Like, you don't want to have those with your preferred company where, loss ratio really is king. You want to, have those with other companies that, either they can stay there or they can graduate up and eventually come on to more preferred companies like we were talking about.
Exactly.
But, when you have a product like with Kemper that is a separate indemnity product, when the customer files a roadside claim or files for somebody to bring them gas or jump their car or change a tire, tow them, they're not getting that put on their loss history with the company because it's a separate company. So, knowing those type of things with your customers, if roadside assistance is super important because they say, gosh, my car's a piece of junk and I think it's going to break down and I want that coverage. Don't put them with your preferred carriers. Put them with someone that's not going to count against them for when eventually you want them to become preferred, hopefully.
Exactly. And a lot of people don't realize that sometimes, on their cell phone coverage, they already have towing plans. I had an individual, didn't have towing with Travelers. Agent called in, and he was, and it was more of a kind of like an E&O thing. He forgot to add it, but it was like the client came back, it's like, oh, you know what? I found a tow, but it was connected to my cell phone plan. So, I mean, there's our other alternatives out there for those things, like you said, with certain carriers too. So there's a lot of options. It's just, protecting where you're placing your business. Because at the end of the day, we're all in this so that you as the organization can make money and be profitable. And then, we give the insurance products available that are a good fit for your clientele, for your agents as well, to be able to, pass it on to their clients. And there's so much volatility going right now in the market, carriers are taking rate. There's a lot of, claims are at all-time high. And so we just want to, make sure that what's coming on board is going to stay. Also, offering all the discounts. Like I know we talk about, the telematics program. Over time, if you get more of your clients vested into participating in these programs, everybody's going to tell you, I don't want to be tracked. I don't want to be monitored. Well, if they have a cell phone, that's a smartphone, they're already being tracked and monitored. We've heard it all. They're doing more things on their cell phone than us, tracking their driving history. We're trying to give them a discount. And not only that, we have, statistics that show clients that do participate in these type of programs carry those habits past those 90 days. Yeah. So that's the kind of client you want on your books. If they can change their habits in those 90 days that we're monitoring them, think of, how they're going to they say it takes 90 days to break a bad habit. And that's, part of the premise of the program being 90 days, because if they can learn to drive better in those 90 days, monitor the things that we are targeting to help them, drive better, they're going to carry those same driving behaviors. Our hope is that they'll carry them past the 90 days when they're not being monitored. And that's just a plus for you, your agents, because then you're not going to have those smaller ticky-tack claims that are coming through for inattentive driving. It's a plus when it comes to the young drivers, because believe it or not, I've seen some IntelliDrive scores where the youthfuls are the ones who earn all the credits because they're just amazing drivers, because they haven't been on the road long enough to develop bad habits, and we're already securing, we're already monitoring what they're doing. Their parents can monitor their driving habits, and I've seen some of the scores come across higher because of the kids, because the parents haven't had a chance to break their habits. So there's if anything, I would definitely quote the telematics, present the telematics both ways, present the quote with and without it, and give your client the ability to choose between those two options. 9 times out of 10, it's going to do one of two things. It's going to make them, okay, well, this is a pretty good discount, tell me more about it.
Yeah.
Or they're just going to be against it and they're going to say, nope, it's not for me. But if they don't know about it, then that's where the real kicker is, because they're missing out on discounts. And if they renew, they're going to renew higher, and you don't have anything that's going to help them keep that rate or mitigate that rate increase at the renewal if there is one, or
Sure.
even if they have a ticket or an accident. So
yeah, and so just to recap on that, enrolling your clients in some kind of IntelliDrive or monitoring driving program by the company develops better habits and leads to lower losses
exactly
than policy holders that don't do that. Okay, so what else do you have for us, Rachel?
Basically just, we're, talking more about the appetite, making sure that everybody, when they're, quoting, always, look at it from, it's your book of business you own. Are you going to make money on this? Is this something that, is a good fit? Not just from a, an agency perspective, but from an overall, partnership perspective. Because you guys, as you are, you guys are a partnership, and everybody's loss ratio accumulates. Everybody puts into the pot. So we want to be mindful of that, because at the end of the day, we want you to make money where those profits and are going to pass down to everybody.
Sure, absolutely.
But I mean, really, just, targeting, like I said, the more preferred business. It's just going to, asking the right questions. Also, making sure you have a detailed, when somebody calls and they're looking for a quote for auto, ask about the homes, ask about if they own any boats, ask if they have jewelry over a certain amount that might be off, that might necessitate a personal articles floater. Push, the umbrella if it's something that's a need, because those policies are only going to help with your retention long term as well. When you go to, start selling, when people start shopping, it becomes daunting when they realize how many policies they have to move. So, really the more policies per household keeps it with the agency longer. So
for sure. Absolutely. Well, perfect. Yes, they do offer auto insurance in Florida.
Yeah.
Again, looking for that preferred client, like we've been talking about here in this training. And then, just have your mix of, when you get a client in, you get an older vehicle, maybe some claims, maybe, different things like that, not to put them with your preferred carriers, put them with your other carriers. And then, just being aware of your marketing, advertising. And that's the other thing too, real quick before we head into wrapping this thing up is, people that are advertising price. That's where I don't see the long-term viability of these carriers that are going direct to consumer. You see on TV, auto insurance for $29 down. And it's like, well, shoot. If that person's looking for a $29 down payment, they're going to be looking for the same thing in 6 months from now. They are going to shop.
Yep.
So, you might, I think it's tempting for some agency owners to put it out there and price. We can get you the best price. And I mean, price is important. I'm not saying don't talk about price at all.
Yeah.
But it's when you're just advertising on price, you're going to be quoting those guys all the time. You're going to be you're going to be spending so much time reminding them to pay their bill, or they cancel their reinstatement, the whole thing. You're going to be spinning your wheels. There's one guy that we just saw the analytics on his agency, and I mean, he lost 40% of the people from the first of the year. So you're 10 months into the year. This guy has lost 40% of the people that he wrote. And you're going, how does this happen? Well, if you're advertising on price, those people aren't going to stick around. I mean, you might write less business, but your staff and yourself, if you're a sole proprietor agency owner, you guys are going to spend so much time just spinning your wheels trying to maintain the clients that you have. You're not going to be able to grow your agency. And eventually it's going to cost you money. You might get money at the beginning from it, so it becomes kind of addictive, right? You're like, well, I know this works because I can make money. Well, eventually it will be your demise. It'll be your downfall. So, be looking down the road, be taking a more long-term vision to your agency when it comes to your advertising and the customers you're trying to bring in. Is there anything we have missed?
Not really. I think we've touched a good portion of, the whole appetite conversation, the underwriting portion. I will tell you, I had a funny conversation yesterday with an agent, and, I love him because he does this with every client. When they come in and they start talking about price, he never sells on price. He offers them, he always, promotes it on value, because he's a firm believer if you sell on price, they're going to leave you on price. So when, customer, he was telling me yesterday that he had a customer walk into his office and was talking about his renewal going up, and his renewal had gone up about $400. Well, every time this customer comes to his office, he'll bring his coffee from Starbucks and he'll bring the agent one. So the agent asked him, so every month, and this guy is, he's an older guy. He likes to stop in, likes to talk, he loves his agent, and he told me, it's not necessary for you to bring me this coffee every morning. So when they started talking, he says, well, you know what, how much are you spending? Because he told him that he goes every day, he goes to Starbucks and he spends and buys, one of those fancy coffees full of sugar, and it's about $6 a day, not including what he gets the agent. When you add that up, that's almost $1,500 a year. So the agent told him, well, you know what would you, so if this was an investment into your policy, what are you willing to give up on your policy? And the guy was just speechless. He's like, well, nothing. He goes, I want the best. He says, well, just like you go out every day and you buy the best coffee that Starbucks offers, you have to understand that that comes with the price. Because part of that conversation was how they'd slowly creeped up, and now his coffee was costing him a little over $6. Well, the same thing with insurance. So it was but it was just a mindset of all the things that we do spend money on that we don't relate to insurance. And it's a commodity. It's a necessity. Coffee is a necessity, especially him bringing that extra coffee every month. But it was just that conversation. But talking to your clients about things that are affecting the market, the cost of materials, the lumber is at an all-time high. Gasoline, fuel itself is outrageous across the country. So those are the kind of things. And most customers, rather than jumping in to just remarket right away, you got to have those tough conversations with, and sometimes it is bringing to light on all the other things that are out there that, that they're giving up. They don't want to cheat themselves out of having a good policy with a good carrier and it, going somewhere else either. Because like you said, the remarkets can be daunting, and you're constantly going to be doing it if you strictly sell on price all the time.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too. We're going to have another segment to this series. It's called consultative selling, needs-based selling. And that's the whole thing, right? It's like with me, I am an agent, right? So I go through and I quote my own renewal, and I'll go through and look at what can I sacrifice to bring my price down, because I have a teenage driver on my policy and it's expensive. And so I look at these different things that I can shave off to try and save some money, but it's like come claim day, come my kids' claim day, forbid, is that, do I not want to have those coverages available to me and to my other drivers? And the answer for me is no. I'm willing to pay more to make sure that my family is protected in the event of a claim. And not only ourselves, but our liability and uninsured motorists and all these different things, right? So having that conversation with your clients, and we'll dive in more in that, like consultative selling and needs-based sales segment, but having that conversation with your client, hey, I can, quote them with everything. And then, because you can always come down, but you can very seldomly go back up, right?
Exactly.
So making sure that, they have all their coverages. And it's kind of on topic, but a little bit off topic. So we're just about done. But the having that conversation, well, I can save you $300, every 6 months by eliminating your uninsured motorist, but then you won't have coverage in the event of a claim. So then, even when they do go out and they start price shopping you for somebody else, they get this cheap price. They're not having that conversation about these details that's going to stick in their mind, and they're going to go, maybe I shouldn't do anything. Maybe I should stay with my agent, because we had this conversation. I know what I have with them, but this is a lot cheaper, and gosh, I don't know what it includes, and the agent's not telling me, so I should probably just stay put. So yeah, making sure that you're doing a needs-based analysis. You're looking at the customer. You're looking at the profile of the customer, the age of the home, the age of the cars, finding out where you should put them, and knowing which companies in your portfolio of companies are used for what purposes and what types of clients.
Exactly.
Rachel, I forget your name again. I'm so sorry.
Brian. His name is Brian.
Brian. It should say on that. We should have, I don't know. They wish they did that where I could see instead of it just saying travelers. Brian, thank you so much. Before we close out, is there anything that we have not covered that is popping in your mind that we should go over?
Nope. I think everything that I was looking to cover. Nope, we're good. Covered
a lot of ground.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, guys. We appreciate it.
All right. Bye. Thank you.